going to start the Marlborough School Committee meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Allison, you are up.
Okay, so tonight I'm going to be talking about a survey I did of the senior class regarding their post-secondary plans and overall senior year experience. I received about 50 responses. I first asked about everyone's plans following graduation, and 80% of students said they're attending a four-year college. And I included separate sections of questions for those who applied to college this year and those who didn't. So in the section for college applicants, I asked how the overall college application experience has been for seniors this past year on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being really difficult and 5 being really easy. The majority of students rated their experience a 3, and the average rating was between a 3 and a 4. When I asked if there was anything MHS can do better to support seniors applying to college, some said that their experience was great, but there were others that expressed needing more support throughout the process. And students would like to see MHS improve its structuring of student support so that every senior applying to college gets the support that they need. Everyone's getting that same experience. A little while ago, Ms. Ray, our administrative assistant for scholarship programs, sent out an email expressing concern because not many seniors had applied for scholarships through Naviance. So I wanted to find out what the cause of this was. So I asked whether students had applied for scholarships in the survey, and a little over half said they had not. And when I asked why, the overwhelming response was that students do not know how to access those scholarships through Naviance. So I'm currently working with Ms. Ray to create a presentation that will walk students through how to access these scholarships, and that will most likely be sent out tomorrow. But I do think that in the future, the senior class needs to be walked through this process, whether that be through an assembly or a presentation sent out to each senior individually, just because I think they genuinely didn't know how to do it. Now, onto the section for those seniors not applying for college. I asked students whether anyone has reached out to them about other options, and it was half and half, yes and no. And I think that in order to get more yeses, MHS should devise a strategy for not only those students who are applying to college, but for those who aren't. Because the reality is that not everyone's going to apply to college. And I think that guidance counselors should do career planning with seniors not applying to college so that they can graduate with a plan already in place. I know that this year especially, it's easy to get really lost in all of this with the pandemic, and it's just been really tough. But I think that if we can implement these changes, it will make a huge difference for future seniors. That's all I have for you.
Questions? Mrs. Matthews.
Allison, thank you for that, because I think that offers Mr. Riley some good advice for some of the things. I do have a question, and I don't know if you know the answer to it, though, because when you talk about the scholarships and you talk about some of the guidance that you are saying that the seniors did or didn't receive, having had 2 seniors, senior years to me is a little late for some of what you were talking about. Were there things that were done last year in your case that people forgot about, needed to be reminded of, that planning? Because I remember from when my kids were there, that guidance started doing things in 9th grade. There were assemblies, there were parents' night, there, you know, the college prep things. Obviously,
FAFSA night.
yeah, the FAFSA night. I mean, obviously, this past year is a different, as you said, a very different story. But do you think some of it was contributed to the fact that obviously there weren't mass things that could be done? I love the idea of doing a presentation, even if it's, you know, a small YouTube video that talks about the scholarships, because Mr. Riley will tell you every year the lack of applications is there. That, you know, oh, I'm going to get to it, or I don't know how to do it, or whatever. And it's been almost the same process, I think, for the last 15 years. It's actually gotten easier, from what I understand, because it's in Naviance. So my question to you is, do you feel you had an expectation of something this year that didn't happen, or it just needs to be improved?
I think, I mean, I don't know how it's been in past years, obviously, because I've only been a senior once, but I think everything just kind of got lost this year, and I think that a lot of students felt alone because we couldn't have those get-togethers, and we started talking about college and standardized tests and all that in junior year, and probably before that, but obviously we didn't get the end of our junior year,
Right.
so we didn't get to have those, and I mean, we haven't had really anything like that this year, so I mean, I think it's mostly because of the pandemic, but yeah, I think overall it can just improve.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all say that all of our educators have had to learn how to teach in a different way, and obviously guidance has the ability to change how they present things, and some of it can be done by video and by, you know, messaging, whatever. So I'm sure Mr. Riley appreciates hearing much of this. So.
Do you get a sense, so I'm curious about the Naviance issue. Is it that people aren't really using Naviance, period, and so they don't really understand how it works? Or is the scholarship tab in Naviance confusing? Do you have any sense of that?
I think, to be honest, I mean, I haven't really used Naviance much before this year, other than to check like my GPA or class rank and to do like test stuff. But obviously, like, test scores were optional for schools this year, so people didn't really have much of a need for Naviance until now. And so I think people just honestly didn't know where to look, and people might not even know how to use Naviance at all, so.
Which is a good thing for Mr. Riley to hear, because, like, I'm just curious. I know, again, I had 2 students of mine who went through, and I think I was pushing the Naviance thing more than the school necessarily was, and I'd be like, well, did you check Naviance? They're like, no one checks Naviance, you know? So I just wonder if we have an opportunity to be able to use that tool more effectively. And if we did, starting kind of like Mrs. Matthews was saying, you know, there are things that the high school does that starts introducing future-focused thinking, whether it be college, or it sounds like we need to ramp up the other avenues in 9th grade. I mean, and there can be things that we can, you know, early on in the high school career, kids can maybe get familiarized with Naviance a little bit better earlier, so that it's in their radar. Oh, maybe I should check Naviance, you know, because if nobody really brings it up until your senior year, then, you know, it's not gonna just be a natural place for people to go and look. So I think that's helpful, helpful feedback. Anyone else? Mrs. Hennessy.
So I'll go on the flip side, Allison. I'm glad that you got some folks that actually spoke up that aren't necessarily going to college. Do you know by the surveys
whether some of those kids actually were a part of some of the technical programs that we've been offering or had that opportunity of considering some of that. You may not have gotten that, and that's fine. I just am curious because obviously that's something that we've added on along the way.
Yeah, no, I didn't really get anything about that because personally I don't know much about those programs, so I didn't really ask about that, but.
No, that's okay, and thank you. I mean, and not to put you on the spot, I just think that that's something that was newer. You know, I think if I recall correctly, you know, we've kind of just added on, Mr. Riley, over the last, you know, couple of years, additional availability of those courses. So it just seems like in that direction that you were trying to head, Mr. Riley, that seems like that might be an opportunity to help with that career planning that might not necessarily be college, you know, a college plan, but which is a great opportunity and great thing to play up. So thank you. Just had to ask. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Mr. Riley, did you want to, there's a lot of head nodding going on up there. You want to add anything?
I was going to say thank you to Allison. I think she did a wonderful job. The feedback is so important. And whether we're in a difficult year or not, this is such great feedback. And I think she's absolutely spot on. It's always good to be reflective of our systems and how we're encouraging more participation in whatever we're doing. So thank you, Allison, for the very thoughtful feedback. You did a wonderful job.
Agreed. Thanks, Allison.
Thanks.
Aside from that, anything else you want to tell us since you got the microphone there?
No, I think that's all for now.
That's good. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start tonight with the spring COVID data. At the time I wrote the report, we had 4 active cases in the schools, 1 at MHS, 2 at Wickham, and 1 at the Early Childhood Center. Since writing that, we've had 3 additional cases, 1 at MHS, 1 at JARC, and 1 at Kane. I presented the city numbers. The testing positivity rate, I believe, has dropped again. I believe it's under 3% the last time I looked. And then the active cases is still relatively static. I don't believe there was any major change in the number of active cases. The 4 key indicators from the state continue to either drop, be flat, and moving forward, and the testing positivity rate continues to continue to drop past under 2%. So that was some good news there. My second item for the BPA, the Business Professionals of America State Leadership Conference. The BPA State Leadership Conference was virtual this year and ran for 2 weeks, February 28th through March 14th. There were 7 Marlborough High participants of the BPA State Leadership Conference: Brooke Bishop, Meg Carroll, Rachel DiDonato, Eli Hintz, Josh Irons, Finola McCarthy, and Samantha Nye. There were 11 individual event award winners. Special congratulations to the following 5 students who qualified for a National Leadership Conference. Fundamentals of Accounting, first place, Brooke Bishop. Second place, Samantha Nye. Third place, Meg Carroll. Payroll Accounting, Mr. Diaz's favorite subject. Second place, Samantha Nye. Third place, Josh Irons. Fourth place, Meg Carroll. Banking and Finance, first place, Brooke Bishop. Ethic and Professionalism, first place, Rachel DiDonato. Interview Skills, third place, Samantha Nye. Community Service, first place, Rachel DiDonato, the Valentine's card for New Horizons. And second place, Josh Irons, Food Drive for Marlborough Food Pantry. Thank you to Ms. Haley and Ms. Belisle for your contributions to the student success. Just a quick reminder, we do have a budget workshop tomorrow at 6 p.m. in this room. While my cabinet and I will be present, the rest of the participants will be on Teams. And Mr. Diaz will have a presentation available that we can then present to you, take questions, and then we will hand off the superintendent's budget to the school committee for deliberation. At this time, I'd like to take a moment and present our full return plan for elementary on April 5th. And Mr. Diaz is going to run the PowerPoint for me. First up, I just want to talk about some of the distancing and safety protocols. So students will be at least 3 feet apart, edge of seat to edge of seat. Some classrooms in the elementary program will be able to maintain more than 3 feet of distance, and as we go through and look at the class sizes, I'm sure you'll be able to see that most will be able to be at more than 3 feet. Teacher workstations will be at least 6 feet apart from the students, edge of seat to edge of seat. I'm still asking and requiring masks, even for vaccinated staff, if they are in a lunchroom and they've both been vaccinated. I know the CDC has said that you can take off your masks in those social interactions. I'm just asking for all of us to continue wearing our masks while in school buildings. We are showing the way. We need to be the role models on this. So I'm asking everyone to maintain their masks even when we're past our vaccination point. Thank you, Mr. Diaz. He procured an additional 2,000 KN95 masks for staff and faculty. We're going to distribute that to the schools, and if we need more, we will buy more. The PCR testing, which we have available for staff, a weekly PCR testing, will be available through June 21st. And just additionally, we also have the Binax testing if anyone is symptomatic. And that is for staff and students. And at the elementary level, snack breaks can happen while on mask breaks outside of the classroom, so that way we don't have to have snack breaks inside the classroom. So next up, I'm going to start to walk through some of the class sizes. And I'm going to start with the remote school. So for remote, when it gives the KR number, the first column, that means kindergarten remote. And when you look at those numbers, that's the average. They have an AM or a PM session, and the averages are 12, 13, and 12. Those are the class sizes. So of those AM or PM students, to the far right column, you can see that 7 are moving back to in-person learning. So when you look at that, that means that basically 7 AM or PM students will be moving back to the in-learning sessions. At the first grade for remote school, you can see the class sizes between 16 and 17. Of those total, 11 students from all of those classes are moving back to in-person. So when you look at the chart moving down, we do see in third grade that 22 students are moving out of remote and they're moving back to in-person. That's the largest number. And then for fourth and fifth grade, 10 students apiece are leaving the remote program and going back to in-person learning. So moving on to the next slide, it is the Goodnow School. And what we see here is the AM and PM sessions for kindergarten have an average class size of about 10 to 11. They're going to be adding 2 students. So there's no real effect on the class sizes there. We can handle that without any issue. At the first grade level, our class sizes are between 11 and 14 at the Goodnow School. We'll be adding back 4 students. Again, that's not going to have any major issue on our class sizes, and they should be able to maintain their 6-foot distancing. At the second grade, they're between 11 and 13. They're adding 7 students back. Again, we don't see any major issues. We think those will still be able to maintain their 6 feet of distance. At the third grade level, they have class sizes of 18, 18, 21, and 22. They do have 10 students coming back. So I'm going to check mark this one, and we're going to get back to that at the end of the presentation because we do want to alleviate some of the class size there. In the fourth grade, we have 19, 18, 20, and 23. There'll be 2 students coming back in that grade. And at the fifth grade, it's between 17 and 20. There's 5 classrooms, and there's 6 students coming back to in-person learning. So you can see for the majority of Goodnow, the younger grades should absolutely be able to remain at 6-foot distancing. As some of the older grades, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to be a little bit closer, probably between 4.5 feet, some even down to, let's say, 3 feet. But that'll be the distancing that we'll have. At the JARG school, moving on to the next slide, the kindergarten numbers are similar to Goodnow. We're in between 10 to 12 for an average. There's 1 student coming back. For first and second grade, class sizes, again, are very good. They're between 10 and 13. And we have 4 students in first grade and 6 students in second grade coming back. Again, we don't see any issues that we should be able to still maintain at least 6 feet of distance between the kids. In the JARG third grade, we have pretty good class sizes already with 16, 16, 17, and 15. There are 5 students who are coming back to in-person learning. Again, that will be at probably 4 feet, but it's still not a big concern. In the 4th grade, we have 21, 18, 21, and 18. We have 7 students coming back, so we are going to check mark that one. We're going to come back to that at the end of the presentation, so that way we can try to alleviate some class size there. In 5th grade, they have 18 to 20. They only have 2 students coming back. Moving on to the Kane School, there are really no issues at the Kane School. The largest number of students coming back is in 3rd grade. And even there, adding 2 students, it'll still put us at about 4.5 feet overall. So we don't see any major issues. There's not enough kids coming back in these grades to really push up the numbers to any area of concern. So again, almost exactly the same as the other schools. There's zero concern about the younger grades. They're all going to be able to stay pretty much at 6 feet. At the older grades, we're going to use the minimum of 3, but for a lot of these classrooms, we'll have more room than that. At the Richer School, as you can see on the right-hand column, we currently, and of course, we're going to update these numbers because the survey doesn't close until 24th, but at the time that we ran this, only 4 students were coming back to in-person learning. So there really wasn't any big changes to any of the classroom environments at Richer. We don't have any concerns about handling this moving forward. So going to the last slide, Mr. Diaz, based on the added students, I asked you to check mark two classrooms. We're going to add a 3rd grade classroom at Goodnow, and we're going to add a 4th grade classroom at Jarrick. Both Ms. Mulkern and Mr. Sanborn are aware of this. We currently have a 3rd grade remote teacher who can be reassigned to Jarrick's 4th grade in-person classroom. We've already notified the teacher, so they have plenty of time to plan. The teacher also has experience 4th grade teaching, which is nice, and they're already at the Jarrick School. We also have a certified long-term substitute who's open for an assignment starting on April 5th and can take on the Goodnow 3rd grade classroom, which is, we think, is a great opportunity to keep someone who's been doing a long-term assignment for us for the whole year, and we can have them transition to the Goodnow School and take over the added 3rd grade classroom. So with those 2 additions, that does pretty much makes me feel certainly very comfortable that our class sizes are good. We don't have any concerns at the elementary level about space. I know the principals have been working very hard on their lunchrooms, and that's something that I don't have concerns with at this time. We're going to be using some additional space. So what you're probably going to see is in some schools, you're going to be using the cafeteria and possibly part of the gym. I say the only school where you don't have to do that is Kane because the cafeteria is huge. And it's just a cavernous cafeteria. But for some of the other schools, we will have to use some additional space just to keep the kids' distance during lunch. So I wanted to know if there was any questions before I move on to the end of the report.
Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you. The only question I'd like to just clarify, so the long-term substitute will move to that 3rd grade class. Will that person continue as a long-term sub that's assigned to a classroom, or will they then be taking over as a full-time instructor now? Just out of curiosity.
They will take over that classroom for the remainder of the year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
Anyone else? Mr. Caruso.
Again, just for clarification, the remote teachers are only teaching the remote class, and in classroom, only teaching in classroom, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is something, and I just want to mention that because we have had some requests come through, and I just want to be as crystal clear as possible. If folks are traveling and they're in an in-person classroom and they're asking to remote in after this period of time, that's not really an option for us. So traveling for leisure does not mean you can remote in. We're asking our teachers to be fully in person. The only time that we'll be using a remote function is if we have to have a student quarantine for COVID concerns.
Did you want to ask something? Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. And I already mentioned the budget workshop. I just want to say that it will be at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And we look forward to any and all of your comments and suggestions. And then we're gonna hand the budget right off to you. So that's what we're gonna do tomorrow. So, thank you very much.
I actually have a question regarding the BPA National Conference. Do we know how that's being handled? I'm presuming it's remote.
I do not know, but I can find out.
It's
Yep.
not that important.
I
Okay.
have to assume it's remote.
Yeah, I would assume, yeah. Any further questions for the superintendent? No, seeing none.
I'll just comment that I'm really happy that the BPA conference was still able to happen.
Yeah.
And that all of these kids stepped up to do something, to be actively involved. So your thank you to Ms. Haley and Ms. Belial, I would just second that, because, you know, not easy when they've been, you know, on their own and not necessarily able to kind of push each other as easily as you would in a group structure in person. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This is tonight's update from Finance and Operations. With the return of grades 3 through 5 students on April 5th, which includes some students that have not been in person since March, I just wanted to take an opportunity to provide an update to our parents on our school operations. Transportation, just a reminder that all students must wear masks on the bus as well as in school. Windows will always be open at least 2 inches, including in inclement weather. And once students come back in April, we will be assigning seats on the elementary buses. Reason being that in February, DESE did lift the ridership restrictions for elementary school buses, allowing the buses to be filled to full capacity. Students do still have to be registered to ride the bus. I'm not expecting any capacity concerns at this point, but we just need to know who's riding so that the seat assignments can work before the students show up. If there are any transportation-related questions, parents can reach out to their schools, or they can email a transportation coordinator, Steve Phelan, at sphelan@mps-edu.org. School meals, the food service department will continue to support our many altered serving models, including distribution of breakfast and snacks to be sent home by students at the end of the school day. So we're not consuming breakfast at the school. Students are taking that home at the end of the school day for consumption the next morning. Also including meals distributed via buses to remote students. We will be continuing that. And physically distanced meals in the school cafeterias, as the superintendent mentioned. And again, another reminder, all meals are included in the academic program in Marlborough. And that will continue to be the case beyond the pandemic. Custodial and services and facilities. Custodians have continued to perform cleaning and sanitizing of school buildings on a nightly basis, and we're working with a contracted vendor to perform wiping of high-touch areas throughout the schools. We've worked with our HVAC consultants since the summer, and the facilities departments continue performing ongoing monitoring of the HVAC systems. And again, we had the HVAC consultant in August, in November, in February, and the goal is to bring the HVAC consultant back in the spring as well. So that work is continuing and ongoing. All of the schools have recent updated reports that's posted on the district's website. PPE, just reassuring the students, families, and staff, we have plenty of PPE throughout the district. We're well stocked. This includes cloth masks, disposable masks for children, adults. As the superintendent mentioned, we have a new supply of KN95 masks, N95 masks for nurses, face shields, goggles, gowns, gloves, you name it, we have it, we're ready. Each school has their own supply, and we also have a central supply stored over at the high school, and we can replenish anything that we run out of very quickly right now. The supply chain is very robust, so we feel confident with the April 5th return. Thank you.
I have a question. So with the new plan for kids to be able to have snack outside, do we provide snacks, or families are sending snacks in?
Combination of both. We do have snacks that are provided within the schools, yes.
Okay.
But families may also send something
Send
if they choose. I always encourage families to participate in our food service program.
Yeah. Any other questions? Mr. Caruso?
On the transportation, first of all, when they say full capacity, just curious, because in my days, that was sort of stuffing them in. I used to drive buses, you know. Is it 2 to a seat? Is that considered full capacity?
Elementary buses are 3 to a seat.
How many?
Elementary buses are 3 to a seat.
Still 3 to a seat?
Yep, so the restriction has been lifted. At this point, we expect to be able to stick to 2 to a seat. But normally, in regular circumstances, on normal years, our elementary buses, some routes are filled 3 to a seat.
Did you have any thought of resurveying parents before we started to see?
We've been doing the hybrid program, and K through 2 has been coming in full time for a while. So we have a pretty good handle on who's riding, and collapsing A and B students will be easy. Now it's just a matter of the parents are choosing to come in from full remote to in-person, making sure that they know whether or not they do want to ride the bus and putting them into a route.
Okay, thanks.
So the total for that, Mr. Caruso, just so you know, after I showed you all those figures and numbers, we're up to an addition of about 78 students coming from remote to in person. So I think that's within our ability to manage on the buses. And that's also, we have 2 different tiered routes this year for elementary. That in part was to help us be able to manage that.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Diaz? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Brien?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right, that's right. So tonight I would like to update the committee on the tiered focus monitoring audit that was done by the Department of Education. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education was on site on Wednesday, March 10th to conduct the review of 10 special education student records. Corey Steinman from DESE is leading the review and brought 2 colleagues with him to assist in examining the records. They finalized their review virtually on Thursday, March 11th with a parent interview, an interview of myself, and an analysis of additional documents that were submitted by the district. At the conclusion of the review on March 11th, Mr. Steinman held a virtual exit meeting with Superintendent Michael Bergeron, myself, and Assistant Director of Special Education, John Fletcher. During the exit interview, Mr. Steinman communicated that he did not believe that there would be any findings for corrections. However, he couldn't definitively say that until the report is reviewed by his supervisors. He indicated that it was very rare for a district to not have findings, and that Marlborough Public Schools has come a very long way from the review that was conducted in 2013. He stated that the IEPs that they reviewed were beautifully and thoughtfully written, and that the proposal notices in the sections of the IEP that explains why a special education student is removed from general education were exemplary. Transition assessments for high school students and the summary of performances for graduating seniors were outstanding and very detailed. Documentation in the records demonstrated that the district reviews data, identifies an area of student concern, and develops interventions to address the concern. He stated that the level of actions, involvement of parents, and the variety of ways that the district addresses a problem is incredibly skillful and thoughtfully done. Mr. Steinman commended the district on providing supports and services to the students and families that go beyond the academics through the Family Success Partnership and the newly proposed district wraparound service coordinator position. He stated that these services are a missing link in education and that MPS recognizes the complex mental and health care needs, food and shelter needs, etc., that is in the spirit of the Children's Behavioral Health Initiative. These results of this review could not have happened without the leadership of Mr. Fletcher and the educational team leaders providing oversight at the building levels. Additionally, I'd like to thank all of the staff within the special education department for their hard work with the students and the contributions that they make in the development of the IEPs and the documents that were reviewed. And at the time of the report, I did not have the final report from the Department of Education. However, we did receive that yesterday, and that was forwarded to you this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
So it's not a question, but I have to say, when I read your report, I cried. I'm a little emotional. I admit it, but I burst into tears. Like, we've never had no findings, have we? I mean, this is amazing.
Thank you. I was extremely happy. I mean, Mary Murphy, it's like after the interview, it was like, I was just like running around the office. But
Yeah, I mean, this
it's
is
just, it's a
remarkable.
collaborative work. It's just,
Yeah.
I was just so happy with the collaborative teamwork across the district and the hard work, the consistency that we've had with the educational team leaders over the last 3 years has really, really been a huge difference in having that oversight within the building level and having a building-based special ed administrator be part of the leadership team at each of the schools. And that's something I can't thank the committee enough for supporting when I know that was in the process when I was first hired. And that has definitely been able to help with the compliance piece. And now the ETLs and the special ed department, now we're working on the next level of programs and services and really being able to define those, continue to identify those concerns, and how can we continue to improve our programs.
One thing I found very interesting when we had our meeting afterwards, Mr. Steinman actually performed the assessment in 2013. So it was wonderful to hear an evolution over time and him to be able to say, here are the examples of what I saw before. Here's what I'm seeing now. This is why I'm giving you the feedback I'm giving you. So that was impressive. So
Yeah.
bravo, Jody. Bravo, team.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mrs. Hennessy?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, it's really nice to see kind of all of the pieces kind of come together. That takes time to get there. But this really shows the fruition of all of the hard work, not just through administration here, but really at the building level and all of the different cogs in the wheel working together to get here. But it was great to hear and great to see. I have not gotten through the report that came this morning. I saw it come through, but I mean, it's fantastic news, and I really hope that everyone at the building level really hears the thank you. It's great.
Yes, so my intent is to, after sharing the information with the committee, is to be able to send out communication to the staff to let them know how we did. Also, as part of the exit interview, Mr. Simon had gone through some of the DESI data that's reported, and he had a question at the time about one thing that they had noticed was the number of EL dropouts at the high school over a period of, I think, Mr. Bergeron, I think it was like 2018, 2019, and he was just saying, that's an area of, concern. And we were able to say, well, since then, that was something that we had noticed too, and we were able to talk about the METIS program, and that we had already developed an overage, undercredited program specifically for that population. And his comment was, well, why does that not surprise me? Because Marlborough Public Schools is showing that they look at the data and they come up with a solution to the problem or the concern.
Really great.
So,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm emotional again.
She's all verklempt.
I'm all verklempt. Minutes of the March 9th, 2021 school committee meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Corrections, anything? Seeing none? All in favor? And we are approved. Public participation.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. For the public participation portion of the meeting, members of the public may provide comment by emailing the superintendent at superintendent@mps-edu.org before 4 p.m. on the above date, or dialing 774-243-0611. And the conference ID is 307-685-166#. Again, that phone number is 774-243-0611. The conference ID is 307-685-166#. pound. Mr. Diaz, is there anybody on the line tonight?
There are currently no callers, Mrs. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Again, that phone number is 774-243-0611, and the conference ID is 307-685-166 pound. We also had no written comments for tonight's meeting.
Okay. This is your chance. I'll give you another second. While we're just giving them a second. Mr. Superintendent, the budget hearing tomorrow is going to be
At 6
5?
o'clock.
Will it be on will people be able to watch?
Yes,
Yes.
but there is no public participation portion as that is a workshop.
Correct. Got it. Okay. Nobody, Mr. Diaz?
Still no callers at this time.
Oh.
I thought I heard somebody. Well, I don't see anybody.
It sounded like somebody was there.
I heard the sound, I don't see any callers.
False alarm.
Well, if anyone has a public participation comment, they can always email it to the superintendent as well, and I'm happy to provide it to the school committee at the next meeting.
Okay. Moving on to action items. FY21 operation budget transfers. Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I have a few transfers for the committee's consideration tonight. Starting over at the Richer School, we're seeking to utilize $5,025 from salary reserve to offset long-term sub-costs in grade 5 and small overages due to rounding in the K-para and adjustment counselor lines. Over at Whitcomb, we're seeking to utilize $15,000 from the EL teacher line to offset overages due to long-term subs in English and the technology teacher lines. At the high school, we have 3 different categories of transfers, if you will, starting with $6,000 from the hall monitor line to offset overages in the OT line. Also, $21,100 in the Marlborough High technology, guidance supplies, transportation lines, and transportation lines to support a science department instructional material purchase. Also utilizing $8,700 from the world language and supplies lines at the high school to support overages in the student activities and dues and memberships line.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Mrs. Hennessy.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Diaz for answering the questions I had on the transfers, just for clarity's sake on, especially at the high school, that transfer. But that sounds like a great opportunity, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, can you fill us in on what that is?
Would you like me to update the committee?
Why don't you,
Absolutely.
since you're in the midst of it?
Absolutely. So the science transfer line at the high school for $21,100 is to support a purchase for 3D printers and materials for the science department, which was supported, it was proposed by the science supervisor and supported by Principal Dan Riley.
Got it. I actually have a question about the hall monitor.
Yes.
So I see we had, extra money in that. During this year, have we had a hall monitor position? Because I know there's less students in the building.
We have not.
We have not. And once the kids come back, is that something we're reinstating for the rest of the year, or?
Those positions are in the FY22 budget, yes.
There,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. FY22 school calendar, Mr. Bergeron.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. As per the school committee's policy, I did provide a draft of the FY22 school calendar at the last meeting. And now I'm bringing forward that calendar for a vote. I would also say that for the February 22nd date, I would say, let's not go crazy here. We have a year to figure this out. So if we don't have to change it tonight, we can certainly take this up in the summer or even the fall, and just recognize that we have an off meeting on a school vacation week and that we can work to fix that. I didn't get any responses on the calendar, so I figured we would punt that one for a period of time, and we will figure it out.
Fair enough.
Motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
And for the parents who can't see what we're seeing, first day for school for grades 1 through 12 will be on September 1st.
September 1st, yes. Oh, and people do get antsy about getting to see the calendar. So the minutes get posted on the website pretty quickly. So I would say next week maybe, or by the end of the week. How quickly do they get posted?
They get posted a week before.
I can post the calendar very soon.
Yeah,
And we
okay.
usually put it on the, there's a links tab of like, most commonly checked on the right-hand side. And we can just add it as like next year's school calendar. People generally go there to look for it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Acceptance of donations and gifts. We've got Follett buyback program, Kane School, $11.69.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. And Mass DESI FY21 ESSER 2 grant in the total of $2,826,150.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? It carries. Thank you very much. And what do we have? Reports of school committee subcommittees. Any subcommittees? Mrs. Hennessy.
Just the policy will have a meeting coming up on April 1st, so that meeting will be posted shortly. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Members forum.
I have reviewed the warrant and will sign it.
Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. Mr. Caruso.
I want to clarify something that I had asked at the last meeting, because the reaction of the mayor indicated the opposite of what I was trying to do, and I'm sorry the mayor's not here this evening. I asked a question about the order, I'm going to say it that way, to go back to school, if it conflicted with any contract negotiations, if we had heard from the MASC, what would be the result of that? The mayor took it to mean that I thought we'd have problems with our MEA. My intent was to make sure that any good faith things that we had agreed to with the MEA would not be affected, to protect the teachers from anything that would cause that problem. My entire intent was to question, not because I wanted to be in a position to be adversarial to the teachers, but I wanted to be protective of the teachers if we had agreements with them that were going to be coming up in contract. So I just want to make sure that was clear, that my intent was to protect our teachers and our contacts with them and contracts with them and our agreements with them as part of COVID, not the other way around. And I just felt that seemed to be the way it was perceived by some people who have talked to me since then. So believe me, it was protecting the teachers. I have a long history with both the teachers' unions and MASC, so I'm not going to be out there trying to do anything not to be supportive of the teachers and what they do in Marlborough, that's for sure. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. Hennessy.
The only thing I just quickly would say that MIA is proceeding on having their town hall meetings on each of their selective sports coming up for spring. So already have gone through modifications, if you will, and then moving forward on those town halls just in preparation for the season. And then I think it sounds like sports medicine, we will continue to have conversations about whether things may need to be continued to be discussed towards next year or what's going to happen. So we're just trying to stay on top of it. So that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. I actually have a question. So when does fall to end and spring begin?
It's right after April vacation.
Yeah, I believe it's April 26th is tentatively when the MIA is hoping you move on to spring. That really is a hope, because it ends up that each group makes their decision about your potting. And so it would be like our mid-walk group would have a discussion. So far, I think we've pretty much stayed on track with what has been like the bigger picture. I don't think Jeff or the mid-watch group have really moved off, right?
No, I think we've been pretty much on track with after April vacation. I'll check in with Jeff, though, just to make sure.
And the spring sports will be the normal baseball, softball, lacrosse for both boys and girls?
The only thing that
Tennis?
is still out there that I believe we have not done yet is wrestling.
Yeah, from, at least from what I have understood so far, we have not heard any movement on wrestling being brought forward as a potential sport somewhere this year. But yes, you're correct. Outdoor track and field, it would be lacrosse for boys and girls. You would have golf.
Tennis?
Golf was in the fall. Golf was in the
Because you
spring?
have boys golf and girls golf.
Oh, right. We don't have a girls golf team.
And
though,
so. No, I believe we had, here in our district, we had
We had
boys.
golf in the fall.
right? We already
we
had
had golf.
golf. Yeah.
And so then you would have lacrosse, baseball, softball,
And girls tennis.
and tennis, thank you. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm missing one. So yes,
Yeah.
we would have tennis. The only, and this is something which I'm sure Jeff's working on, would be the question about, sometimes in past years, I think we've had, AMSA has joined with us as a co-op,
We have a
right?
co-op team.
Right,
Yep.
sorry, I couldn't remember.
The co-ops.
So, and
yeah.
we've had a number of different co-op experiences all along the way, so I'm sure we probably would be continuing. I just don't know that. I can't.
Yeah, well, I know like with girls hockey, we have
Exactly,
the girls playing on Algonquin. Yeah.
exactly. So,
Okay, anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Oh, any discussion? All in favor? We are adjourned at 8:22.